Now, it's a privilege for me each year to stand here and have the opportunity to address our students one last time and speak to their families on this moment of commencement. Every commencement is unique, of course, but this year's holds particular meaning. As the posters on this stage remind us, you're graduating in our 150th anniversary year, and today's ceremony, the largest one we have ever held, seems particularly appropriate in this year of celebration. And as I suspect, as most of you have recognized by this point, for me personally, this is also a special celebration, as I have the privilege of having 3 generations of family present to see my daughter join the ranks of Thayer engineers. And so let me say to our parents, our graduates, to the siblings, grandparents, and parents in the audience, I speak today not just as the dean, but as a parent who's gotten to see this school in new ways through the eyes of his child. And it has left me even more impressed and inspired by what I have always known of you, our students. Your intellect and your intellectual curiosity, your incredible work ethic, your ability to persevere on incredibly limited amounts of sleep, your uncanny ability to locate free food anywhere in the building. The true definition of a nanosecond is the time between a staff member hitting send and students descending upon wherever that location of free food has been promised. It is truly astounding. And also your fundamental decency as human beings. And their belief, to our graduates, your belief, that engineering is not at its core simply about problem solving. Sure, others characterize engineers as problem solvers, and that's true, but it is so much more when embodied in you, our students and graduates. It's about harnessing the power of technology, about creating and inventing to improve the human condition, to serve society. And as engineers, of course, it's not just your mindset, but it's your skill set that sets you apart. You're analytical. You're quantitative. And at the end of the day, when we reduce what you do to its most fundamental, it's about hypothesizing, measuring, interpreting. It's about data. Data matters. Facts matter. Numbers matter. Like the number 113, the number of BE degrees being awarded this year, the largest total in the history of the school. So congratulations, BE graduates, you are part of something special. Like 52, the percentage of women earning bachelor's degrees in engineering last year, the largest in our history, and a cause for national celebration the past 12 months for breaking through a perceived glass ceiling. Many of you receiving BE or MEM today were part of that record-setting historic class last year. Or a number like 175,000, which is my estimate of the minimum number of engineering degrees, bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, that will be awarded in this country this year, an all-time record and a positive statement of your generation's goals and aspirations on so many levels. Now here's one more number for you, and that's the number 8. That is the number of individuals in today's U.S. Congress that the Congressional Research Service cites as engineers. 8. 7 in the House of Representatives, 1 in the Senate. That's 8 out of 535. I trust that all of our graduates can do the math or have, in fact, already done the math, but that's just under 1.5%. Now, the obvious conclusion is that engineers are generally not politicians, at least not in this country. Now, interestingly, the polling organization Gallup, which is well known for its polls on trends that affect elections and governance, also samples the public opinion on its view of the value to society of different professions. And back in December, just 6 months ago, they surveyed the American public on different professions, asking respondents how they would rate, and I quote, the honesty and ethical standards of people in 22 different fields. And the choices they gave them were very high, high, average, low, or very low. Top of the list, nurses. And if you think about it for a minute, that's not particularly surprising. Next, essentially tied, physicians, pharmacists, and engineers, with engineers being evaluated by 65% of the public as having very high or high standards of honesty and ethical integrity, and only 5% perceiving engineers to be low or very low, essentially tied with nurses as the lowest of any profession in the country. Well ahead of members of Congress. I actually didn't intend for that to be funny, but your point and reaction is noted, right? But also ahead of business executives, lawyers, bankers, journalists, psychiatrists, even ahead of members of the clergy. So let's think about this for a moment. We engineers often complain about a lack of public understanding of what engineering is, yet here we see a clear signal that the public sees you, sees us, sees engineers as serving the public good, as putting others first. It seems, in fact, that engineers are viewed as perhaps one of the few remaining honest, ethical, trustworthy, and selfless professions in society. We're data-driven, we're analytical, we're fact-based. For this reason, we're trusted. And yet, for this reason, we tend to stay out of the public sphere. We tend to retreat into the data, stay on the sidelines, contribute to the public debate only when pressed, and in many ways conform to that public stereotype of engineers as smart, hardworking, sometimes unintelligible, introverted problem solvers. But you, our graduates, our Thayer engineers, you're different. You are anything but inward-facing, and that is something I have seen year after year after year. Sure, some of you may be a little less vocal. Sure, some of you may have a quiet passion for things like coaching a middle school Lego League robotics team, engaging in after-school science or junior solar sprint, or spending a weekend when you're not working in the lab or on a problem set, quietly hiking Moosilauke with friends, or attempting to emerge victorious while you settle this place called Catan. But I have seen you, year after year, eloquently present your work to faculty, to staff, to the local community during our annual open house, speaking passionately, quantitatively, substantively, a rare combination about your work and its benefit to society. As BE students, for example, you describe your work developing a wearable device capable of monitoring personal exposure to secondhand smoke. Your work developing low-cost and effective instruments to quantify polymerase chain reaction, PCR, in order to enable detection of the concentration of DNA over time, or to evaluate the material and adhesion properties of bone cements being developed for dental implants. As MEM students, your work evaluating marine energy technology to identify alternatives suitable for an integrated ocean energy offshore wind complex, or the potential for increasing life expectancy in developing countries through broad, systematic, and regular deployment of telemedicine technology that exists today, or assessing the feasibility of using free space laser technology for short-range line-of-sight terrestrial transmission of voice, video, and data in office parks or on college campuses. As MS and PhD students, your work in imaging, sensing, protein engineering, electronics, and a host of other areas published in papers, presented in conferences, but also readily discussed at our open house with the broader public. All of you used your technical and analytical skills to accomplish great things, but an important part of your success went beyond the technical. It was your unusual ability to communicate, to listen, to speak eloquently to the non-specialist about your work and the impact that your work might have on the world, to use your voice. So my message this morning is that the public tells us that this voice, the engineering voice, your voice, is a trusted voice. And I am asking you, each of you, in your own way, to think about, at this moment in time, what it would mean to use that voice in a more public way. I'm not asking you to run for Congress, although changing the anemic numbers that I reported in that regard would, I'd say, not be a bad thing over time. But I am asking you to think about engaging in the issues of your day in whatever way that works for you, but that pushes you slightly outside of your engineers and engineering comfort zone. I'm extraordinarily proud of our faculty, whom I have seen in this past year alone weigh in publicly on issues of the importance of supporting scientific funding for research and education, to the impacts of climate change, to change needed in math and science education. They have done something that engineers do not naturally do. They've taken a public stand, an action that for engineers is not easy and one that immediately invites criticism, but an action that I will argue is essential to the public debate and for the public good. So when you think about the technical related policy issues that are facing you, that are facing us now at this moment in time, the public needs our voice. The public needs your voice. When our ceremony ends in just a few minutes, we'll gather outside of Cummings and McLean for the reception and lunch that I announced just a few minutes earlier at the start of my remarks. And there, I promise you, as happens every year, I will see many of you, unless it's torrentially raining, I will see many of you gather with your friends and families for photographs next to those words carved in stone, and you know what words I'm referring to. But in this year, I ask that when you stand there and when you pose with one another and with your families and friends for those photographs, you reflect one last time as you leave Thayer and Dartmouth on what those words mean. To prepare the most capable and faithful for the most responsible positions and the most difficult service. And I ask you today, is there any more responsible position or any more difficult service than informing the public debate? Because if we as engineers do not speak out using data and the position of trust that the public holds us in, if not us, then who? There will be a void. You have a tremendously important opportunity and role to play. So let me conclude by saying to you, our students, you have truly left your mark on us, your faculty and staff, and I say thank you. Thank you for the time you have spent with us. Thank you for the provocative questions you've asked. Thank you for the late nights. Thank you, not really for the pizza boxes left piled in the atrium early in the morning, but thank you for your energetic contributions to our enterprise. And to you, the family and friends, parents, grandparents, and siblings gathered here today, I say, as I do every year, but this year it is particularly personal for me, thank you for lending us your sons and daughters, your family and friends, this extraordinary group of talented individuals. On behalf of the entire Thayer faculty and community, it has been a privilege. This concludes our investiture ceremony. The platform group will recess, followed by the faculty, and then our graduates, as I said, to Moore Theater for photographs, and then we will reconvene with family and friends under the tent outside of the Thayer School of Engineering for a celebration. Congratulations.